we make the population, the population ready for ready to reap the demographic dividend. In fact, India is reaping the benefits of early investments in their quality education institutions. We have to thank the missionaries in the past who set up the IITs, IIMs, Indian Institute of Sciences, AIMS, National Institute of Technologies. NEP today, 6 to 10, as it develops, as it becomes a developing nation, then the manufacturing sector, which is not a possible economy. So so the point I was making is the point I want to make here is that without a strong manufacturing sector, the growth the growth impulse in India would never be sustainable. It is unsustainable. But this is all changing now. Let's get back to the second slide. Now, the manufacturing sector suddenly is forcing its way to the front. Manufacturers remain lagged behind. Now suddenly is making its presence felt. There is massive government capital expenditure today, deliberate massive capital expenditure in transport and communication, energy, education, skill formation, sectors are exhibiting all-time growth in production and profitability. The optimism that exists in the manufacturing sector is reflected in the stock market. Today's stock market index is at an all-time high, with investors anticipating to make insane amount of money in the future. In fact, evidence of this optimism, the evidence of this growth is quite evident. You know, economy that is growing, economy that is prosperous, an economy that is being productive. Now that is reflected by a lot of air traders. In 2 months ago, Air India for the first time ordered 470 Boeing and Airbus passenger airline, which was the biggest order of all time. In fact, this was again superseded by Indigo last month, where it ordered 500 Airbus 320. So you can imagine the kind of growth in the airline industry that these two companies are estimating or projecting, and this reflects the kind of optimism that exists in the manufacturing sector. Now there is record inflow of foreign direct investment, foreign institutional investment. You see suddenly all iconic global brands are coming into India and setting up shop. You have Tata Airbus. It's starting to produce now. It started to produce military transport aircraft, which are cutting edge technology. You have iPhone, the iconic iPhone company, which has set up shop in South India, and it has exported 5.8 billion worth of iPhones last year, and it's expected to increase iPhone exports to 10 billion in 2020. We hear now Tesla is going to come on board. It's going to start investing in India. India is entering its golden age. India overtook UK in 2023 to become the fifth largest economy in the world with a GDP of 3.2 trillion. Now that GDP is supposed to double to $7 trillion in by 2030, and when that happens, India will overtake Japan and Germany to become the third largest economy in the world, and that is something which is incredible and something which we could have never imagined maybe 20 years back. Uh, well, uh, you know, let's talk about the defense sector because that is the most exciting sector that I can see. Uh, there, the defense sector has always been the exclusive domain of the private sector. Defense industry means public sector. I mean, the private sector never had a role in the defense industry. But the Galwan clash with China suddenly gave a new impetus to defense preparedness. The entire mindset changed, and suddenly we have this new mantra, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now today, defense sector, which was the exclusive domain of public sector enterprises, now suddenly private investment is coming in at breakneck speed. Now let's start with the public sector enterprises. You have Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. Now that was a company which was just assembling planes which were exported from Russia, and suddenly today they're making cutting-edge fighter aircraft like Tejas and Tejas Mark II. Now their ambition has grown even more. Now they are talking about manufacturing a fifth generation aircraft, which they call the MCA. Now again, they have again produced a cutting edge uh, in, assault helicopter, which was called Prachanda, and this helicopter is so technologically advanced. People have started comparing it with the Apache helicopter of US. So these are unheard of things. Today, uh, Hall is again it basically has a plan to co-produce jet engines with General Electronics. And this was a deal which was cut when Prime Minister Modi had visited the US. Again, for the MCA engine for the MCA project, again Hall is again collaborating with the French company Safran to produce cutting-edge jet engine. So these are new areas which was unheard of. But the public sector growth, public sector, public sector, what would I call it? Public sector attainment or achievement is not only confined to Hindustan Aeronautics. There are massive growth in other public sector enterprises. We have Majgaon Dock, which has started producing cutting-edge submarines, Scorpion submarines. We have Guardian, which are producing warships. Bharat Electronics, Bharat Dynamics. These are very sleepy, giant public sector enterprises. Suddenly, they have all become very active, and they have started competing with the private sector, and and basically supplying military equipments, which India had to export. India had to import, causing creating huge burden on the foreign exchange. Suddenly, we have these companies producing drones and a host of missiles. You have and the quality of the Indian the quality of the products of the Indian public sector enterprises uh, has been accepted across the world. So you have great interest shown by foreign military on the BrahMos missile, on Prithvi missile, on Akash missile. You have the Pinaki multi-rocket system, which are now being exported to, Armenia. Well, these are unheard of things. But this dynamism in the defense sector is not only confined to the public sector enterprises. Suddenly, India's finest companies are all plunging huge amount of investment in research, development, and production. We have Larsen and Toubro, Mahindra and Mahindra, Tata Advanced Systems, Ambani, Adani, Jindal, all this, and a host of other mid-cap companies who are coming into the defense sector and producing critical and very sophisticated defense equipment, which have huge export potential. In fact, as a country which was importing all its defense equipments, suddenly the defense exports have gone to an all-time high of 16,000 crores. And today, the growth rate at which the defense sector is growing, now it is aiming at a export target of 35,000 crores in 2025, which is only 3 years from now. So this is a very exciting sector, which augurs well for the Indian economy, because in defense we have been spending so much money, precious foreign exchange on imports. Now suddenly uh, we are now dreaming of exporting defense equipments instead of importing, and obviously that's going to create a huge relief for our foreign exchange balance. Now we have unprecedented growth in both the public and the private domain, and that is obvious in all spheres. And in fact, the three instances which I had mentioned uh, is are only a few of the many inspiring stories that are lifting Indian economy to the new level. Now, this did not happen suddenly. This is a culmination of the wisdom of the early visionaries that we had, who created the industrial infrastructure, technical manpower, and the scientific base. And these are the and this constitutes the foundation for the takeoff towards which India is heading. Today, the question is of not if or when, but how fast and how soon. So this is my first presentation. So I'm sure there would be a lot of discussion, and I'm sure participants would also like to put forward their comments and everything. So I'm here. So let me stop for the moment, and I'm ready to take part in the discussion.
Well, sir, that was really you have given the presentation on the topic that you have chosen and where India stands. And it really shows that this decade, as we have seen yesterday with the landing of Chandrayaan, decade belongs to India, but there are certain very many paradigms that we need to focus about. And you have definitely given that vision over here, as whether it is, you can say, the sectoral dominance, you mentioned about that, you mentioned about the normal economic transition, and then unleashing the defense sector, where we are actually have to allocate more outlay. And as you mentioned, by 2025, it should reach around 35,000 crores. So I think we can open the session for the question answer round if someone wants to interact and someone wants to ask some questions from our speaker of the day. The session is open for a question answer round.
Ma'am, can I ask?
Sure, Nidhi, please do ask.
Very good evening, sir. Sir has talked about the stages of the growth of Indian economy. Like he mentioned that our economy had jumped directly from agrarian to the tertiary sector, right, sir? So I just want to know, we can also call it as a strength rather than our weakness, because tertiary sector is contributing more than 50% to our GDP. And Dakar sir had mentioned that we are also developing our manufacturing sector. Like we will develop our industrial sector, and we will develop this computer making industry also. So we are on that path. And instead of beside India, there are other South Asian nations like Vietnam, Philippines. They are also following the same path. So I think, is it correct to call it is our strength rather than call it as a weakness?
Yeah, thank you. Now there is a debate regarding what you had pointed out, but the general perception is that unless the manufacturing industry is very strong, unless the manufacturing sector is very strong, then the economy, the tertiary sector cannot make the growth that is being powered by the tertiary sector cannot be sustainable over a long period of time. Basically, it peters out. So, obviously, for an economy to be self-sustaining and to be strong, there has to be a balance between the three sectors. Now, but the problem is, unless you have a very strong manufacturing sector, that acts as a base, as a core for the other two sectors. And we always had a manufacturing sector, but this manufacturing sector was mostly, especially especially with regards to basic and heavy industries, it was dominated by the public sector enterprises. Now suddenly you have the private sector, which is coming in very strongly, and this is especially true in case of those areas which were earlier reserved for the public sector enterprises, and by this I mean the defense sector, for example. So the idea here is, if you have a very strong manufacturing sector, that acts as a huge support for the tertiary sector, and that makes the growth for the economy very sustainable. Without a strong manufacturing sector, the tertiary sector led growth is not going to be very strong and sustainable.
Thank you, ma'am. One more thing I just wanted to know, sir. Like in first 5-year plan, the prime motive force was Indian industrial agrarian, right? Sir? And in second 5-year plan, we have followed the path of industrial sector. The prime motive force was to develop our industrial sector. Then after 1990s, we have focused on agrarian sector, right, sir? So where we have lost, like. We were going through the correct path. We were there to develop our industrial sector. But after 1990s, it was there. It was a dire need to develop our agrarian, because it was pressure from other organization, international organization also. So I think I just wanted to know where we have lost. What was our weakness?
See, there were lost decades in the Indian economy, and that was because of during the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. What was happening was the government has uh, entered all productive sectors, heavy industry, infrastructure, everywhere. Everything was, basically reserved for the government PSUs, and uh, and and we have this very restrictive license branch where you have to take license for every, entrepreneurial activities, and that was acting as a deterrent to the private sector. It's only after the economic reforms suddenly the market forces were unleashed, private enterprises, private profit, and this basically pushed the economy to a different growth lane, and which was missing in the earlier era.
Right, right, right. Thank you so much, sir. I will not take much of your time.
Yeah, thank
No,
you.
that was very, very good
Maybe
question,
because it's
Mr. Sumi.
interactive. Yes, it's interactive session. I think it will actually promote more discussion on the platform. So,
Right.
any other question, any other query or interaction that you would like to have, any participant?
And comments also. I will
And
be happy to
comments
have
also.
hear,
Yes,
and
yes,
I'll
sure.
be happy to hear comments.
Yes, please go ahead with comments as well. Dr. Abhishek, would you like to say something?
Actually, ma'am, I want to say that whatever Nidhi was saying that there we have not lost anything. Whatever sir has told that the focus is on balanced growth, and whatever government of India is focusing there, like make in India, or we are going to be 5 trillion and 10 trillion economy. The main focus is on manufacturing sector. We have not
Yes, sir.
lost, but there should be a balanced growth between, because we can't ignore agriculture, rather,
Yes.
and we also can't ignore manufacturing sector. There should be a balance. Whatever sir was saying, I fully agree with him. And
Right, sir.
to become 5 trillion or 10 trillion or whatever be it, manufacturing sector's role will be prominent, as well as agricultural sector role. That was my observation.
Thank you, Dr.
True, sir. I fully agree.
Yeah. Even sir, I would like to discuss something with you, sir. I have a query. May I, sir?
Yeah, please.
So you said that this is very much true that private investment is flooding in all the sections, all the sectors, and it's actually sectors are exhibiting all-time growth in production and productivity. That means even we have opened the core sectors, very many core sectors to the private sectors. That means we are disinvesting. So always this kind of the query arises: is disinvestment good, and to what extent? And as we were dependent on the public sector enterprises were there, and they were the as you can say, they were holding the economy. Now we can see that things are now going to the private sector. So like we are actually privatizing everything. We were a mixed economy, as we say. So like, is disinvestment good to any extent, or we should hold somewhere something?
Yeah, madam, that is a very important question, and I have a, I have a particular view on that issue. Let me talk about it. Let me
Sure.
try to be articulate about it. See, basically, what we had is we had these public sector enterprises, which was and the activities in this public sector enterprises were close to the private sector. And as you know, madam, most of the public sector enterprises were loss making. And basically, what was happening, people, the revenue of the government, which was supposed to be spent on the welfare of the people, in providing social infrastructure, on welfare schemes, those were being used to basically feed the public sector enterprises. So basically, it's not the job of the government to produce cars. It's not the job of the government to produce clothes. It's not the job of the government to produce mobile phones. Basically, the government is supposed to take care of the society, is supposed to provide the social infrastructure in the sense, medical facilities, health facilities, health infrastructure. It's supposed to provide education infrastructure, especially primary education. It's supposed to make roads and get and have economic infrastructure ready for the private sector. Now, instead of that, the government was operating public sector enterprises which were loss making, which were inefficient. And suddenly, when they started disinvesting, suddenly you have management which was accountable to the government, who was the major shareholder, as well as to the private shareholders. And suddenly, all these private sector enterprises started making profits. And these enterprises, uh, which were liability of the government, which were constantly demanding bailout packages from the government, now are starting to instead, um, uh, transfer revenue to the government, and the government now is free to spend more money on welfare schemes, on providing social infrastructure, on health infrastructure, etc., etc. So I believe that the government has no role, even it has it has no major role in producing goods and services which can be very efficiently provided by the private sector. What the government should be concentrating should be, it should be using its resources to provide succor to the poorest of the poor, provide the basic necessities of life, fooding, shelter, education, health. That's what I believe in.
Thank you. That means, according to you, and as you said, that disinvestment is good, and the government should actually concentrate only on providing the services that relate to the welfare of the community or the society, and the production of goods and
My
services.
idea is basically when the market is working, when the market is functioning efficiently, the government should not be violating that efficiency. It should not, rather it should be concentrating on things which they are supposed to do instead of interfering with the free working of the market.
Don't you think, sir, that in that case that we are mostly moving toward the laissez-faire type of an economy where private sector is actually dealing with all kinds of consumer goods and services, and a non-intervention of the government is then the production of these goods. So are you
Yes,
heading
madam.
towards there?
Let me try to address what you have said. Madam, when we talk about government intervention, the government intervention obviously should be on areas of market failure where the market doesn't work. But more important, there are certain areas, certain goods and services that exhibit positive externalities. If you're talking about basic education, if you're talking about health, if you're talking about if you're talking about you know yeah provision of life-saving medicine, those areas have positive externalities, and basically these are the areas where there is partial market failure where the government has to intervene because the private sector is not competent enough to take care of that. You know what I'm trying to say? Basically, in goods and services which exhibit positive externalities, the government has to intervene. It has to intervene through subsidies or direct production to kind of supplement what the private sector is doing. But so far as goods and services where there is no positive externalities, it's just consumption, the government has no role. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So I think we have certain questions here. Prakriti Shukla has asked a question. I read it for you, sir. Government working on expansion of agriculture production, and it's done by subsidizing fertilizers, pesticides. However, it's now taking about shifting organic. Is agriculture growth really balanced with the growth of health in India so far?
Okay, this is agriculture is not really my domain, but obviously I don't think I'm competent enough to discuss this in a sense because obviously fertilizers and other things are there's a lot of negative externalities associated with that, and obviously those has to be controlled to the extent possible. I believe organic agriculture may or cannot be sustainable for a country like India. See what happened to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka suddenly one day Rajapaksa decided that they wouldn't be using any insecticides or pesticide, and the entire agriculture sector was forced to go organic, and suddenly production fell to 10% of what was being produced earlier, and that was one of the major causes for the collapse of the Sri Lankan economy. We just can't wish fertilizers and pesticides away just because we want organic. Because if that happens, the agricultural production is going to go down drastically, and that's going to be disaster for the economy.
She continued with one question further, that why don't we align agricultural sector growth with that of health than just productivity? So, sir, I think if Prakriti has asked this question, what is agriculture sector growth to connect with that of health? So here, Prakriti, I must say that we have millets this year. International Year of Millets has been signed by the UN. So it is actually aligning with the health. Then just productivity, yes, no doubt. When the demand for these millets would increase incredibly, yes, then we can have a problem of how to match the supply with the demand, because till now we know that millets are those kind of crops that use very less water. So with the increase in demand, there may be again a possibility of use of fertilizers or pesticides as there was in the Green Revolution to increase the productivity in the production. So then we will have to think in that concern how to make ourselves. So I think that, sir, you would like to highlight something on this? Komal, please mute yourself. Komal Rajput, mute yourself.
Yes, madam.
Barua, sir, if you'd like to comment something on this.
Not really. I accept your point, madam. I appreciate that.
Any other question? Anyone else? Sir, indeed, this was a really lively interaction session, and we would like to interact more with you, to know more from you, and to, when queries are there so much in our minds and heart, we need to actually, interact and discuss. And I think we have earlier speakers also on this platform. So, I would like Professor Sudhakar Tanda or Prashant Kumar Ghosh, sir, if they are in the AMRIT platform, may please be here to interact and give it a more healthy, ground to discuss.
Hello, Professor Barua. Very good evening.
Hello, Prasanta. After a long time. Lovely seeing your face.
I think there are a lot of queries and a lot of questions, and I would like to just add a couple of points. As you said, India is now fifth largest economy, and you mentioned third world economy also for India. But my perception is a little different. My perception is there was a time when India was regarded as third world country. Now it is third biggest economy in the world. Third, not fifth. Why I'm saying third? That is when you measure India's economy on the PPP basis, it is third largest. And Human Development Index measures the income on triple P basis, not on nominal exchange rate basis. Then this is a transformation from a negative third to positive third. That I see India in that term, always a positive mood. And as far as growth is concerned, a lot of discussion were there on growth. It is a remarkable journey for India. We have moved from so-called Hindu growth rate of first 3 decades, then a neo-Hindu growth rate, that is double of Hindu growth rate, that is almost 7%. And now we are marching towards the super Hindu growth rate, that is a triple of Hindu growth rate or double-digit Hindu growth rate. That is the remarkable change. And naturally, that the future belongs to India. And one point I would like to mention also, as Professor Barua has mentioned about the defense sector. Now India has recently manufactured the first indigenous aircraft carrier of the world, which is very remarkable achievement. In addition to frigates and missiles and Astra, that was yesterday only 20,000 feet height. We have air-to-air missile Astra. We have tested yesterday only. They are very encouraging. And moreover, what I was mentioning in my presentation, the future of the world depends on future of India, and especially in terms of climate change and energy. And I have mentioned detail the AMRIT, that is go beyond 2047, not only for next 25 years, but beyond that, up to 2070. And in that light also, if you see Indian economy, that is a beaming economy and growing economy, leading economy in the world. And so many other points are there, but I'm not supposed to go in detail. And as it was mentioned about disinvestment, as Dr. Anamika mentioned, so I would just like to mention one very good sentence. We actually adopted this model of disinvestment from Britain. And I remember one sentence of Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady of Britain, or that time Prime Minister. Her comment was, it is not business of the government to do business. And what Professor Barua was emphasizing, it is not, there was a time when the government of India had a company called Modern Bread. India manufacturing bread also. It is not. And when we say it is not government business to do business, we mean whatever amount of money we are able to withdraw from public sector entities, we have to put in on 2 major sectors. And I remember some time ago, Professor Abhijit Sen was a member of Planning Commission. During 9th plan sentence, he said, 9 is mine. 9 is mine. And by 9, he meant 9% growth rate of the economy at that time. And second 9 was 3 plus 6, 9. 3% of GDP on health and 6% on education. That makes 9. So what Professor Barua was focusing, that unless we invest at least 9% of GDP on these two sectors, we will not be able to continue the high growth potential of India, as after 1990s, our main focus on human development. And what we were missing in the earlier decade, that the human resource was very poor at that time. But now it is not only in India, but around the world. You see all the major companies in the world, they are being managed by the Indians. And interestingly, this year only, we have the World Bank president also in Indian, Dr. Ajay Banga. So that is a real story of growth and golden time for India. And I don't think that only next decade belongs to India, but next 50 years also belong to India. That's my submission. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was such a positive note. And yes, we should look at the positive side of what is happening. I must say here one thing more, sir, that when we look at this AMRIT KAAL and we say that, we are pathway to 100. Yes, GDP growth rate is increasing, double digit talking about. But then as you mentioned, inequality is an income that we need to actually focus on. But more important, beside the inequalities in income, is actually, as you said, inequalities in health and education. When we are going to, address this problem, it's sure that we can address the problem of inequality of income.
Now, as we know, that the new mantra of modern development economics is inclusiveness. And the inclusive development has been the focal point of 11th plan, 12th plan, and also the core issue of Niti Aayog also for the future. That inclusiveness gives the answer of all these inequalities. That is inclusive growth, inclusive development.
Thank you so much, sir.
In fact, I would like to respond to Dr. Chaudhary. In fact, she made a very interesting point. She was talking about inequality. Now the question is, earlier in public finance was more very focused with regards to the inequality between income of the richest and the poorest. Now that focus is no longer there. Now what public finance is concerned about is, let the rich be richer. I mean, that's not the issue. Let them earn as much as they can, and let us tax them. But the issue here is, we should be able to use the resources that we mobilize from the rich, the productive, to provide the base of flow to the poor. Basic education, basic health, basic fooding, clothing. So the idea is, need to provide a base for the poor, which guarantees the basic necessities of life. That is what public finance is all about. It's not about bridging the gap between the rich and poor, rather lifting the poorest of the poor, raising the floor of consumption. That's the point.
Thank you so much, sir. This was such, a lively interaction, knowing so many nuances of the Indian economy. And yes, when we have such kind of professors on this platform, it's really a blessing for all of us. So over to Dr. Anjali for further vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking me here. So I would like to request Dr. Nidhi to kindly come for the vote of thanks.
Nidhi, you are mute. Please unmute yourself, Nidhi.
Hello, is it audible, ma'am? Is it audible?
Yeah.
A very good evening to everyone. It has been such an honor to be a part of this wonderful event. On behalf of the institution, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest, Professor Nissar Barua, who had elucidated the very pertinent discussion that does this decade really belongs to India and its future prospect. I would also like to thank you the way he discussed about the demographic dividend and India's sectoral aberration, stages of different stages of Indian growth. And my special thank you goes to our VC sir for his unwavering support in making this lecture series a success. My sincere thanks to our very energetic, the head of the department, Dr. Anamika Chaudhary ma'am, for always being so cooperative and understanding. I thank to our very scholarly and dignified professor, Dr. Rajesh Sinha sir, for his presence. I also like to thank you, Prashant sir, for raising very pertinent point about the defense and climate change, etc., and counting strength of our country and calling it a leading country. My gratitude also goes to Dr. Anjali ma'am for her effort in making this event successful. I would also like to thank you, Dr. Abhishek Pandey sir, for being its coordinator and also for throwing light on the stages of growth. I must also acknowledge the moderator of this lecture series, Dr. Narendra, as well as each and every one of you for your eminent support and participation in making this series a wonderful one. Thank you again to all the respected guests and speakers, VC sir, our learned professors, team members, technical and non-technical support staff. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nidhi. Ma'am, would you
Thank
like
you,
to
sir.
say something? Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. And it was nice having you people. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.